Okay, recording.
Good morning, coffee chat time, or good evening, good afternoon, whenever it is you're choosing to watch this coffee chat. Welcome. We're glad you're here again with us. And today is a literacy focused. So I'm going to be passing it over to Gail, and she's going to be talking about a student in year 6. And it's all about writing. And I know writing is a real problem for some students and for some teachers to teach. So I think this is going to be a really popular coffee chat, Gail.
Yeah, thanks, Lynelle. I think it is going to be something that a lot of teachers struggle with, mainly because their students are struggling. So yeah, today is all about Matilda, who's in grade 6, and it's at the start of the school year. So my challenge as a teacher is that Matilda is really struggling with any writing task. Doesn't really matter what it is. And I can't really seem to get an extended writing sample from her of an essay or a story. She sort of seems to me to be a won't. And I'm quite concerned because, you know, we've only got this year, and then writing's so important in secondary. As she starts year 7, she's going to really struggle if she can't write. It's a problem.
Yeah, I know. Having done learning support into secondary schools, I was always surprised at how the secondary teachers across all subjects expected the students to be able to write essays in their subjects. And they don't generally tend to teach the students what I guess you're going to show us as to how to help them get an essay or any written task done.
Well,
so what are you going to do?
Yeah, one of the things is that most secondary teachers assume students can write an essay. They assume students can write a paragraph and a sentence, although in some schools that's changing with the paragraph structure being taught in some schools. And we won't even really get to that today. That'll be one that we take up later in another coffee chat. But Sarah was a won't because she was choosing to draw a lot. So she's really quite artistic and talking to other students rather than writing. So almost avoiding writing with any other activity that she sees is, you know, something she can do rather than something that she can't do. So yeah, it seemed like a won't, but maybe down the track it might not be. We had needed to get some evidence to see if it was really a won't or if it was a can't.
Yeah,
because that's always the dilemma.
I know, and we've been making some of those discoveries in our early coffee chats, haven't we? That sometimes we thought they were won'ts, but when we got the evidence, it was a little bit of mixture for some. But did you see, was Matilda struggling in all writing tasks across all subjects, or just in English creative writing?
No, all subjects, and even more difficulty with subjects that were around factual tasks.
Okay.
Because the words, the vocabulary in any information text is obviously a lot more complex than in a narrative, a story, even in the novels that we're reading at grade 6 level. So I really needed to get a sample of Matilda's writing. And again, I thought it was a good idea to sample the whole class. Because maybe she wasn't the only one. Maybe she's the one that I've noticed. She's more obvious, because oftentimes we've both seen students that fall through the cracks because they seem to be doing okay, but they're really struggling. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, especially if they're very well behaved and they're sitting quietly at the back of the room.
Exactly. So I decided to give them, the whole class, a simple story starter with the start of quite, I thought, an easy topic that was familiar to start a sentence, which was, "It was a dark and stormy night, ... So that was their starter for the story. And then their task was to think for just 2 minutes. And I did have a stopwatch and I used it. And then they actually knew, because I said to them, the task is to write, once you've had your thinking time, to write for the whole 3 minutes. Not just write a bit and stop, but okay, here, think, now just start writing. And for most students, 3 minutes goes quite quickly.
Were they allowed to write any vocab or words, anything in the 2 minutes or not?
No, they were just told to think and think about, you know, if they were in a dark and stormy night, anything, what do you think would happen? Where would you be? So yes, I gave them a little bit of a prompt to start the orientation of what would be a narrative text. So who, what, and where. What would you be doing? So I'm asking questions. I'm not providing any other prompt other than those questions. And it was a dark and stormy night. So yeah, they did that, and most of the class thought that was okay, which is what I expected. But there were a small group of 4 students who really struggled just for that 3 minutes to keep writing. And I couldn't really tell, Matilda was one of them, but I couldn't really tell if it was that they didn't have the ideas or that they were struggling with the mechanics of writing, because writing is a complex task. There's so much involved in writing. So that was the evidence I had. And out of that came, again, unsurprising, a small group.
Yeah.
That seems to be the pattern.
Yeah, this is the pattern you shared with an earlier Cuppa chat too, was let's do a whole screener, and now we've come down to a small group, and now we do some more diagnostic. And I like, yeah, tell us what you do to find out more about these 4 students.
Yeah, it is a funneling down process, because then I don't have to work with the whole class on things that some students can already do.
Yes.
That becomes very boring for those students. And that's when you tend to get some inappropriate behaviours because they're bored. So what I needed to check was it the ideas that they couldn't get? So was it the thinking part of that screening test that was the problem? Or was it the actual physical writing it? So I ended up, yeah, it's really something that you need to get clear in your own head. And that tells you then how you can support them to start to be better writers.
Very good.
Yeah, so I started with an oral chat, and I said that I knew nothing and took their lead. So what were you thinking? And I said to them, here's another prompt. I think it was early one morning. Here's another prompt. Think again. And this time I allowed them to write down in those 3 minutes. And 2 students could actually have a go at that and had written a few ideas, but 2, one was Matilda, really couldn't think of anything. So for Matilda, it was the ideas, but for 2 of the other students, it wasn't. So the next step was, okay, if they're having trouble, let's talk about the ideas other students have written down and use that to scaffold some thinking with Matilda and the other student who struggled. And so that really helped them to see what another student had written, to hear the ideas from someone else.
Was that a little bit inspirational and encouraging, I guess?
I think it was, and it was also something that would be familiar to them, because another child would do something similar to what they would do. So there was lots of positives for that. And we know that getting children to work with a partner in a writing task is an evidence-based strategy. It helps to support them. So we had that chat, and I scribed for these students, and they started to write then a couple of ideas, just some words. Then the next step was, okay, let's write some sentences. And using those words, all 4 students were allowed to write a couple of sentences and could do it. So it for those 2 students, it was can't get the ideas. And the 2 that did write down some ideas didn't write a lot. So then it was about the scaffolding discussion around, okay, let's write a sentence with those words in. And read back and start sharing and chatting again. And that seemed to work quite well for all 4 students. They really took that on board, and that became part of what was a small intervention over a short period of time.
Right. So just clarify for me, they were chatting as a little group with you there, sort of prompting some questions maybe, and then they went back to writing their own. They didn't make a group writing task?
No, they each wrote a couple of sentences, and then I actually put them with a partner. So that faded me out, and they started working with a partner, and I took the two, Matilda and the other student that was struggling a lot, and paired them with the students who actually could get some ideas. So they were paired with a better peer, and it was almost like a mini version of peer tutoring. It was the oral chat that I then supported and added to if I needed to, but I was trying to step back, trying to fade out, make them more responsible for the task. So yeah, that just worked, and we did that for a few story starters, just simple things. I then asked one of the students to come up with a couple of story starters, and she was able to do that, not Matilda. So again, it's me fading out from high scaffolding to lower scaffolding.
Great.
And yeah, that led to setting up some goals.
Right. So
for
that's,
Matilda.
yeah, what were they?
The goals were that I wanted her to start to think up ideas and just write some words within a time frame. So I would give her a little bit longer, allow her to use some pictures or whatever, but give her a starter and say, okay, now can you write down a few words about that picture or about that, what you can see in this image online. And she was able to do that. Then we scaffolded a little bit more with modeling, and she worked with her partner. And I mean, that was the start. That's really the start about me being, go on.
Well, as you said, she wasn't starting before. So that, I guess, and I like that because I refer to that as sort of moving the goalpost closer. You brought it quite close. I just want you to think up ideas and start writing for this long. So that she could feel, well, I can take that step, because previously she wasn't taking any step, was she?
It becomes an achievable goal for her, not something at frustration level way above her.
That's right.
So
she had to believe that she could do it.
The other thing that I started, which was a little bit different, was I wanted her to practice writing. So I started a diary process with that group and with the whole class. So every day we did, 5 minutes of writing. What did you do last night? What did you have for dinner? What's your favorite TV show? That sort of thing. And they would write for 5 minutes. We did that for a few weeks, and then we gradually increased it to 10 and 15. So
was that a whole class thing, Gail?
Yeah, whole class diary writing.
Yeah.
And then we'd give them 5 minutes to read each other's. So again, setting up that partner thing so it wasn't always me. Didn't create a huge burden of marking for me.
Yeah.
I then regularly look at 5 or 6 students' work each week, and over a month I could see all of the students were writing. So again, that was extra practice for Matilda. So yeah, it's sort of just getting those little bits in place to scaffold the thinking processes and then provide more practice.
I can hear sort of, you're talking about things you did with the whole class, some extra support at sort of a tier 2 intervention, even some quite highly individualized instruction with Matilda and her pair. We could call that the tier 3 intervention, couldn't we?
Yeah. And that in this coffee chat now, we've discussed a few different things that we hope that some teachers listening might be able to have a go at and try out at some stage and give us some feedback.
Yeah. So
I'll prepare a scaffold for that, and I'll prepare, some sample instructions and tasks that teachers could do, and that we'll make that a free download off the Facebook group.
Fantastic.
Yep.
I think that'll be great. As we said, we know writing is a problem for students, especially if you're working with students in the upper primary area. You really need to be working on that. And I think Gail shared some fantastic ways at all different levels of intervention. I just think that whole class one of let's just, drop everything and write for 5 minutes a day and slowly extend that. That's just simple and easy to implement. But I like also how she scaffolded that for Matilda. So we're going to leave it there today for our coffee chat, and we hope join us. Certainly share your challenges about writing, teaching writing, and have a go at some of the ideas you just learnt today, and we'll talk more about in the coffee and cake session. So
we'll look forward to hearing from you on Thursday evening.
Thank you, and bye for now, everyone.